Workplace. Yeah. All right. Workplace violence. All right. Refresher training. Pretty much annual training. Next slide, please. All right. Pretty much this is the topic we're going to discuss about workplace violence. Warning sign, prevention. What if some become a victim? The wingman concept. Always you got to be a wingman. And zero tolerance policy. Just like anything, zero tolerance. We're not going to allow it. And talking points. Next slide. All right. Definition of workplace violence. Pretty much, this is what the workplace violence definition is. Any act or threat, physical violence, harassment, imitation, and others threaten or disturb behavior that occur in other sites, a work site. It ranges from threats, verbal abuse, to physical assault, to even homicide. It can affect and involve employees, clients, customer, visitor. Homicide is currently the fourth leading cause of fatal occupational injury in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Census. Fatal occupational injury of the 4,547 fatality workplace injury that occurred in the United States in 2010, 506 were workplace homicide, so cause of death. Next slide. Nearly 2 million Americans have been victims of workplace violence each year. Unfortunately, many more cases go unreported. The truth is, workplace violence can strike anywhere, anytime, and there's no one is immune to it. Research has identified the factor that many increase of the risk of violence for some workers at certain work site. There are many risks to factor warning that are often overlooked when it comes to workplace violence. Some of those warning signs include history of violence, history of poor trust relationship, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, out of touch with reality, criminal behavior, access to weapon, paranoia, blames government, military, or others. Social anxiety, legal, financial, and family problems. So it can cause workplace violence as well. And next slide, I'm sorry. All right. If you feel that you're a victim of workplace violence, or you need to report the incidents to law enforcement or seek medical attention, if you need it, you can bring it to your chain of command, and pretty much that's it. Chain of command, supervisor, your peers, you can bring that up. Nothing can guarantee that employees will not become a victim of workplace violence. These steps, however, can help you reduce the odds. Learn how to recognize, avoid, or defuse potential violence situation by attending personal safety training programs, alert supervisor of any concerns that are safety or security, and report all incidents immediately in writing, or report violence incidents of these local police. All right, next slide. All right. Each and every one of you has the power to reduce the chance of workplace violence by being a good wingman. Look at these around. Look at these guys. Look pretty much around the guys around here. You're going to work with these guys pretty much for the next 6 months. So, patience the key. Can't really be, All right. By simply making an effort to make your fellow airmen feel that there are value, encourage, and an environment and mutual respect, you instantly better your workplace for everyone. Ensure personnel are aware of the wide range of resources available to them, such as family program, military one source, first sergeant, your supervisor, your peer as well. And it is a job of your supervisor and leadership to create an environment that encourage communication through the unit. If you don't feel like you can talk to someone, especially someone in your leadership position, that is when the problems can arise. If you think you can see some sign of potential violence, don't ignore them. Try to talk to the individual and see if you can help them. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can bring it up to your chain of command, and somebody else can help you out with that. Next slide. All right, zero tolerance. In many workplaces, there is this risk factor that can be identified. Risk assault can be prevented or minimized if employees can take appropriate precaution. One of the best protection an employee can offer their workers is establish a zero tolerance policy towards workplace violence. In the Air Force, the the Air Force has zero tolerance policy regarding interpersonal violence, declared zero tolerance policy, forbid person in position to authority from exercising discretion or changing punishment to fit the circumstance subjectively. To ensure the airman's safety and workplace, promotes their well-being and mission readiness. To instrumentalize pretty much zero tolerance. We're not going to allow it. And next slide. And pretty much. Anybody have any question or topics or anything to discuss about workplace violence? Next slide. All right, conclusion. Here it is. It's very clear and present danger alert just beyond our conclusion to people that have worked together 8 or 10 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week. It is potential for violence to occur in the workplace, but also in the mind of that no responsibility safety process in the workplace can ignore the fact that violence is more likely to come from the outside the immediately workplace. While it is everyone's responsibility to alert for the report potential workplace violence problems, supervisors or managers have added responsibility to prevent assignments, reporting, and responsibility. All right, so zero tolerance, and that's the link if you have any question or concern. All right, thank you.
Okay, this is refresher training for human trafficking. So, trafficking in persons is a worldwide problem involving violations of basic human rights. It is defined as the use of force, fraud, and coercion to compel a person to provide labor or services or commercial sex. It is a leading source of profits for organized crime, together with drugs, weapons, generating billions of dollars and affecting virtually every country in the world. The Department of Defense has zero tolerance policy for trafficking in persons. Slide. It is the Air Force's policy to deter activities of members, civilian employees, contract personnel, indirect hires, and command sponsors, dependents that facilitate or support TIP. Today we will discuss the following topics: types of trafficking in persons, common locations of TIP, traffickers and victims, combating TIP. Slide. Oh. There are 4 main topics of trafficking in person. Labor trafficking may result when unscrupulous employees exploit vulnerable workers, such as the unemployed and those living in poverty. Immigrants and are particularly vulnerable, but individuals also may be forced into labor in their own countries. Sex traffickers occurs when a person is coerced, forced, or deceived into prostitution. All of those involved in recruiting, transporting, harboring, receiving, or obtaining a person may commit obtaining the person having committed the trafficking crime. The Department of Defense has zero tolerance policy for prostitution. Child soldiering involves unlawful recruitment or use of children as combatants or labor by government forces, primarily organizations and rebel groups. Male and female child soldiers are often sexually exploited by members of the armed forces. Trafficking in organs is a crime that occurs in 3 broad categories. First, there are cases where traffickers force victims into giving up an organ. Second, there are cases where victims agree to sell an organ and are cheated because they are not paid for the organ or are paid less than the promised price. Third, volunteer persons are treated for an ailment which may or may not exist, but when the organ is removed but the organ is removed without the victim's knowledge. Slide. Trafficking in person can occur anywhere around the world. Potentially locations for sex trafficking include bars and strip clubs, dance clubs, massage parlors, spas, escort services, street prostitution, and private parties. Potentially location for labor trafficking are in the food services, constructions, domestic service, manufacturing, and hotel industries. Slide. There isn't one type of criminal who traffics in person. Traffickers can be gang members, organized crimes, business owners, diplomats, corrupted government officials, U.S. military members, and U.S. contractors. Their victims can come from vulnerable population that include undocumented immigrants, runaways, and homeless children, women and children of limited resources, displaced persons, and prior victims of abuse. Slide. So they want us to talk about it. Does anybody have any discussions that they want to talk about, that know about anything that's anybody's been trafficked or know anybody of? Okay, slide. So for more information on these topics, please see the DoD Directive 2200.01 and the AFI 36-2921. Do you have any need? Slide. So the conclusion is that the DoD has zero tolerance for this policy of trafficking in person. So if you believe you have witnessed a trafficking operation or believe a person is being trafficked, you should report that information to your chain of command, security forces, or IG. Questions? Thank you.